Hi, everyone. I just wanted to pop in with a bit of housekeeping before we kick off this episode. Just know that this episode was recorded very late last year. I think it was almost the last day of the year, and it's been quite some time which has passed since I've had the chance to actually complete edit and get this podcast out. I've been on hiatus pretty much for the first half of this year almost, and kind of getting back into it again. So I hope you understand the delay, and thanks for any patience. Also, moving forward, I just wanted to let you know that the scope of the podcast will change a little bit over the coming months and going forward, mostly to occasionally, talk about some more, commercial films and films that are interesting but not necessarily Ozploitation based. I think we'll still go back to Ozploitation films from time to time because I love watching those films, so we'll still do that. But we will start probably from next episode looking at some more popular Australian films, and I hope you'll enjoy that as well. If you have any comments, suggestions, please let me know, and hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you. Hey there, and welcome back to A Dingo Ate My Movie, the podcast where we dive into some of Australia's most memorable films, from timeless classics, cult favourites, and today's hits. My name is Pete, and I'm your host. Today I'm excited to have Matt Fulton from the Champagne Comedy Podcast with me as we explore the Australian slasher film Cut.
It began as a class project.
We have to do a graduation film, right? What better project than to finish that film?
To resurrect an old film from oblivion.
That movie was a nightmare.
So what you're saying is there's some sort of a curse on this film?
Now, they've made an unexpected discovery of a mysterious legend.
Creepier than Friday the 13th. More blood and guts than Texas Chainsaw.
More sex than deep throat.
What are you in it?
That should never
Who wants to make a mainstream slasher movie?
see the light of day.
Don't go playing with nightmares.
And action.
I've never said this before, but I've always found you very attractive.
Oh.
Hey, Matt, how are you doing, mate?
I am going good. How are you?
I'm good, mate.
Yeah, you dragged me into this one, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It was a bit late notice and everything. It was like, oh, can we do this? And luckily you came back and said, sure, why not?
Yeah, and I said sure, and then please let go of my arm.
Yes. All right, so Cut is an Australian slasher film with a kind of a fun meta twist. It follows a horror film called Hot Blooded, which was shut down in the 80s when the director, played by Kylie Minogue, was brutally murdered on set. Rumour has it that the film is cursed. Anyone who tries to finish the film meets a violent end. Decades later, ambitious film student Raffi, played by Jessica Napier, takes on the challenge, convincing the original star Vanessa, played by Molly Ringwald, to reprise her role. But Vanessa's attitude and the curse make things far from easy. As filming begins, the cast and crew are picked off one by one by a masked killer wielding a giant pair of shears. Is it the curse, a crazed fan, or something much stranger? with Molly Ringwald as a Hollywood star, slumming it in Australia, Kylie Minogue in a very brief and bloody cameo, and a killer who seems to hate filmmaking. Cut is packed with campy fun, some over-the-top gore, and a ton of 90s slasher energy. Interesting film, I thought.
Well, confession, I've never seen this film before until now. So I heard about it, read about it, you all, like every little bit and piece, but had never actually sat down and watched it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Okay. You know when things age like a bottle of fine wine?
Yes.
Well, let's just say it's like, because it's Australian, it aged like a bottle of Tui's New.
So it didn't really hit with you.
It did and didn't at the same time, because overall, it was great, but then I was trying to get lost into the atmosphere, the fantasy of it all. Yeah, giving it a benefit of the doubt because I love Aussie films, obviously. But when you're trying too hard, like it goes in and out of, okay, we're trying to do a horror flick, inspired by Scream, and then as they're going into it, they end up taking the piss out of themselves. But then it gets a bit too much, especially when it comes to certain wording, when they're in one of the moments that they're doing that screening in the student theatre. And then you can tell how Aussie it is when it's like, oh, you're a fuckwit. It kind of ruins the illusion.
Yeah, it's pretty fun that way. There's a few instances that I think I put it as a note for later, but there's a few instances where someone just says, oh, fuck off, or something like that. And it kind of, I don't know why, it made me laugh quite a bit.
It's a very ochre. It's like, trying to do Scream, but an Australian version of Scream should have been Yell. But,
yeah. Well, Cut was released on the 23rd of February 2000 and was directed by Kimball Rendell from a script by Dave Warner. More about them later. It stars Molly Ringwald, Jessica Napier, Sarah Kantz, we've got to be careful saying that name, Frank Roberts, Stephen Curry, who was in a few other movies, one we're going to talk about a bit later this year, and, of course, Kylie Minogue in a bit of I guess it's a cameo, really, even though she's in the, front and center in a lot of the advertising.
Yeah, it's kind of that misleading type thing where I guess when you look at the movies these days, the direct-to-film, direct-to-videos, and say, for obvious circumstances with Bruce Willis, where he's featured front and center, but then he's only in the movies for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this film at its heart is like a meta slasher, I guess, and it sort of came out 3 years after the release of Wes Craven's Scream in 1996. The film is also a film within a film, as well as doling out all the horror tropes that everyone's come to love and hate. Whether it's successful in its execution is something we definitely want to be talking about. Now, if you want to watch Cut, I think it's available to stream on Broly in Australia. And at this time, it's sadly out of print in physical media, as far as I know. I had a look on Umbrella's site, and it's still listed on the site, but it's showing as out of print. But it can also be rented on Apple, Google Play, and YouTube as well. I think you've been watching it on Broly. I was lucky enough to have the Blu-ray.
Yeah, correct. I paired up my Broly app up to my TV and watched it from there, and had my dog sit next to me.
I saw the photo.
Yeah, that was legit. So I was watching that, and then after first few minutes, she's like, I'm over this.
Yeah.
But I pursued.
Before we get onto the film, I've got a few bits of facts and trivia and junk. So there's an acronym in this film on the film cans, and it says FARTS, and stands for Film, Audiovisual, Radio and Television School. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that.
Okay.
But I am the proper way of rewording that, which is obviously taking the piss out of Australian Film, Television and Radio School. I am actually a former student of that school.
Well, it is actually they actually thought it through. It is actually a spoof anagram parody of AFTRS. So
Yeah,
yeah.
The fact that I do remember attending class in the year 2005, and they were quite proud of Cut. And
Right.
I see the odd poster floating around.
Mhm.
Even though I was in the radio department. This is when the school was in North Ryde,
Right.
next to Macquarie Uni.
Mhm.
And, yeah, this is where they're really passionate about these things. And, I can see the parody of it, but it's like this is where we get the joke, but you keep losing your identity. Are you scary? Are you meant to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they were trying too hard. Again, with the two is new.
Yeah, they were.
Too much about it.
Also, as I mentioned before, Kylie Minogue basically has just a cameo in this film, even though she's in the advertising and her name's pretty much up there. She apparently it was a plan to be a bigger part, but she had a lot of other commitments, and so they kept her part small and like a cameo. I had a look at what she was doing around this time. So this movie was made around 1999, early 2000. Her seventh album, I think called Light Years, was released in September 2000. So I'd say she was most likely in pre-production and possibly recording while they were filming this. So I would say that possibly is why she doesn't have a big part. There's actually a lot of musical connections in this film, which we'll get to. But as an aside, that album contains Spinning Around on a Night Like This and Kids, which are really big hits for her. So, and also this movie came out a couple of years after she did Street Fighter. I don't know if you understand that one.
I've got a copy of that too, and half of that was filmed in Queensland.
At Roadshow or whatever it is it Village or whatever? What do they call it?
Yeah, on the Gold Coast, because that I only rewatched a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Right.
And noticed a few of the bays in the area of the Gold Coast. So,
okay. You must have known you were going to be watching this film.
Oh, yeah, I think it's just like a double dose of Kylie.
Yeah. It was Molly Ringwald's first and only maybe appearance in an Australian film. It was also her second horror movie, her first being Office Killer, which I've never seen, in 1997. I get the funny feeling she might have taken this on because in the interviews I've seen, she said she loves Australian film, et cetera, but I'm sure a free trip to Australia probably wasn't a bad thing either.
Yeah, and as you could see by the credits at the very beginning and so forth, who heavily financed this film, being Michael Gudinski's
Mushroom,
yep. Yeah, the Mushroom Pictures. Yeah, I think someone had greasy palms with that.
They certainly did. Speaking of music, so the screenwriter for this, Dave Warner, he wrote this script during Christmas break one year. He's also known for having written the song Suburban Boy. I don't know if you remember that song at all.
No.
It was a minor hit in 1978. I thought I had the single here somewhere. And yesterday I had my box of singles out looking for it. And I went through every single. I couldn't find it. It took me ages. But anyway, so Suburban Boy was a minor hit in 78, reached 31 on the Australian charts, so not really high. But a lot of Aussies around that time know it. And his album Mug's Game was certified gold within a month of release in the same year. On another musical note, Kimball Rendell, the director, played guitar and sang with Sydney band XL Capris in 1978, and in 1981 was a very early member of Hoodoo Gurus, and he left just prior to the band's first album, Stone Age Romeos. He also worked as a music video director with clips for Cold Chisel, The Angels, Hoodoo Gurus, Dragon, and Boom Crash Opera. If you've seen the Cold Chisel music video for Flame Trees, then you've seen his work. He also worked with Kylie Minogue on a short film called Hayride to Hell in 1995. If you have the Umbrella Blu-ray, the short film was actually included as extras on the disc. It's actually not bad. Had a look at that the other day as well. He was also a second unit director on the Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. And in 2012, he directed the 3D disaster shark movie Bait 3D, which I'm sure we'll eventually get to on this podcast. I haven't seen that one. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
So I love those movies. I'm a sucker for those sort of movies. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' rating for this movie is 20%, and the audience rating is 26. I'm kind of surprised it's that low. I actually thought it would be a bit higher because I know you didn't, but I kind of enjoyed it. But I'm a slasher movie and a horror aficionado, so I'm getting used to enjoying crap. So.
No, but don't get me wrong. Like, this was my first time watching it. I went in with sadly high expectations, which was a big fault.
Not a good idea.
No. So and this is like years and years of like knowing about the movie. I tend to ignore prestige reviewers, critics.
Yep.
And because sometimes I just don't gel with their idea of it all. So I have a bit of an open mind. But this one I definitely will be revisiting on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because it is up there with pure cheese. And I'm talking vegan cheese. So it's, it's definitely one that I'll go back to down the track. And, I wish I actually owned a physical version of it.
Yeah, you probably, I mean, if you keep, I imagine if you keep lurking around, through stores and stuff like that, you'll eventually find one.
I'm a regular now every Saturday morning at my local op shops.
Yeah.
So much I walk in and then there's one lady who volunteers there who just goes, you back for the usual, are you? And I went, hey, I'm donating here.
It'll turn up. What's really interesting, on YouTube I found a review of this movie by David Stratton and Margaret Pomeranz. And he gave the movie a 3, I think, out of 5. And she gave the movie a 4 out of 5.
Wow.
She really enjoyed the movie. Now, caveat, in the review on YouTube, she does know the director. So I'm thinking that there's a little bit of, hey, he's somebody I know. He's a friend of mine. I'll be nice to him, sort of things. But she gave decent reasons for liking the movie, so it was quite interesting.
Yeah, there is something in it, as I've said, but there are moments where they lose the illusion.
If we look at this film, if we start looking at the similarities, I guess is probably the best way to start. Looking at the similarities between this movie and Scream, which I'm pretty sure it was like a big influence in making this film. And actually, I think this movie is somewhat more similar to Scream 2, right? Have you got much history with the Scream movies?
I've seen 1 to 4.
Okay. So I think this is, sorry, I was just going to say, I think this is a little bit closer to Scream 2 in some ways.
I think it's a combination of both. So with the setup of the intro, the way that it's designed, it's more or less the what's your favorite scary movie type thing, or, the Drew Barrymore intro type thing. It's more like, what's your favorite pizza? Hawaiian, your pineapple. So it's like, so it's, and then once that opening scene, which I'd say is a parody / homage to the Scream opening, because, in Australia we don't do Jiffy Pop on the stove.
Yep.
We make 2-minute noodles. And with that, that's when they switch it into that Scream 2 of, it's a movie.
Yeah, movie within a movie sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the other movie that it reminds me of a little bit, because it's a little bit different to other movies in the slasher genre, mainly by virtue of the killer being like some sort of supernatural entity that takes their power from the film itself, right? So the only other movie I can think of that is probably similar is another Wes Craven film called Shocker. Have you seen that?
No, but I am aware of it.
Yeah, it was in 1989. So there might be some others, but I'm just trying to think if there were others like this in the sort of like the slasher genre. But it seems Shocker seems to be the closest I can think of.
Yeah, and like every time I do think of other movies that have a similar trait to it, where it is attached to that physical film type thing, they tend to be a bit more modern after cut. But every time I throw back to it, I think like there are moments in it where I do think it's they're paying a little homage to the style, the makeup, I guess, of Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about a bit later on.
Yeah.
But There are just those moments, or kind of like a voodoo doll type attachment. Like, I'm sure there's a Stephen King movie that's like that, or where there is that whole destroy the item to kill off the spirit.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Like, it's obviously a curse, right? So, yeah, it's interesting seeing Stephen Curry in this film. He plays one of those sort of funny characters you see in a lot of these sort of movies, right? He's the funny guy. It's really funny seeing him in this and then seeing him in something like The Castle. He's
kind of like the Jamie Kennedy of the movie.
Yeah, that's it. That's perfect. Yeah.
So he kind of adds that whole don't take it too seriously. It's like, get over it. It's fine. It's just a movie or whatever, especially the part where they're filming outdoors late at night, and then like he's having a piss.
Yeah.
And then that kind of is like, he's making fun of it, but
man, that piss, that's a thick stream.
Oh,
I'm like, is someone behind him with a hose or something?
Oh, yeah, but how he just carries on while he's being startled by our scary guy, which is Scarman.
Yeah.
And gee, I wonder where they got that name from. But yeah, there are just moments. Stephen Curry is one of them where he's the comic relief, but also can do a serious line or two if need be.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
I also felt like that his parts were a little bit improvised.
A little bit, yeah. I think there might have been a little bit of improvising across the board, maybe. I actually thought the performances were pretty good on the whole. I kind of think Molly Ringwald wasn't too bad, but I still do think she was maybe slumming it a little bit and just sort of getting a payday and a trip to Australia maybe.
Yeah, I'd say it's more or less the going into the theatre to preview the screening of Hot Blooded, where her character, as she's coming in, and straight up, who's smoking in here type thing, and I'm going, oh, yeah, you really are acting like that. Like, I guess that's the purpose of the character, but it was just too over the top, or it was proper, but then because of the Ocker Aussie, it's like she'll be right, mate, type comparison. So.
Yeah, she does say there's a whole stack of like small interviews with a lot of the cast on the Blu-ray, and she kind of says that she enjoyed playing a part that is nothing like her in real life. Like, I think she was also trying to say she's not a bad person.
Yeah, trying to ham it up and be a bit more over the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought she was pretty good in all. I actually thought the character of, is it Raffi? I kind of liked, she's the director. I kind of liked her. She's probably one of the only people in the movie that have a little bit of an arc and a little bit of like there's her relationship, it's spoiling everything, right? So it turns out that she's the daughter of Hilary Jacobs, of Kylie Minogue's character at the start. Did you pick that up, right?
Yeah, they mentioned that. Yes.
Yeah, and there's a couple of hints. There's a hint at the start where she's said, "Can you hear her voice? Can you hear her voice?" And it's kind of like she's excited that she's heard her voice, sort of thing. It's not a bad arc, and she's not a bad actor, right? I don't think there was any really bad performances, except the guy. What's the actor's name? The guy in the screening room, the projectionist.
Oh, I know the real guy's name.
Yeah,
he's Terry Mora.
That's it. He's really good. I've seen him. Well, he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so it just feels like Gudinski's just gone. I like the castle. I'll get Stephen Curry and Terry Mora to come on. It's like, oh yeah, it's cut the horror comedy movie that's also the spirit cousin of the castle.
But his character was pretty good. He was like this sleazy kind of projectionist kind of guy that had all these, says a lot of stuff, and he very, very cliched. Up in his projection room, he's got all the girly posters and all this sort of stuff.
You know what would have been brilliant? if they incorporated Bruce Spence as the projectionist straight out of Hercules Returns. That would have been the icing on the cake. So
Bruce Spence would have been a good projectionist in this movie.
yeah,
He would have
but
worked very well.
to use his character in that'll be very meta.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was good. I thought the dialogue, as I mentioned before, was funny. I don't know why, but those couple of exclamations of "oh, fuck off" and that sort of stuff kind of made me giggle. Some of the jokes didn't land.
Yeah.
I didn't think. I thought one part I wanted to talk about was the effects. I actually think the effects are good in this, and some of the kills are quite good. I especially like the detective that gets pushed in the back by the killer and trips down the stairs and is impaled on the garden tap.
Yeah, and Scar Man had the courtesy of, turning on the tap to wash away the blood, but also close her eyes.
And her mouth.
Close her mouth.
Close her mouth, yeah.
Yeah. So
that was good.
The drown.
The beheading was done pretty well. I thought that was quite good.
Yeah, so a lot of it, I guess for its budget, or just being a low budget slasher film, they did pretty good, and it has somewhat stood the test of time. When you especially don't have any major CGI stuff for back then, and there are moments where when they eventually explain by the original director of Hot Blooded, saying the Scar Man is the spirit of the film. So it's like you're just trying to explain the whole, this is why he's around. And then when it's on fire or just where there's other bits and pieces going on, being shot or coming down, jumping down from like a second story. Yeah, but all the blue screen behind it and everything. And I'm going, all right, here we go. But then when Scarman's talking, it's very, very ochre.
I've got a note about that. So, like, one of my criticisms of this film is that the killer, Scarman, once he takes the mask off and everything, should never have opened his mouth to speak, because they try so hard to make him like an Aussie Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
And he ends up sounding like some guy you run into down the pub.
Yeah. An Outback pub or something.
Yeah, something like that. And that line doesn't make sense. The whole line about, I might have missed something, but the whole bit about, I'm just a family man who's come here with my family or something like that. I remember it's stupid. It didn't make any sense. And I just found that every time he opened his mouth, there was no impact in what he said because of his accent, I guess. And maybe the actor, I don't know. He didn't really sell it.
It was more or less like dialing it in, but it would have been more impactful if, say, Scarman would go, you fucked cunt.
Yeah, something like that, right? Right, something like that.
But they could have distorted his voice a bit more or make it more deep and impactful. But it doesn't sound like that they re-recorded it ADR style or anything where, out of Scream where they've got the production or the EQ on it. Sounded like really raw on set. Yeah, well, it wasn't too intimidating.
No, it was just like you're talking to your mate in the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it would have been great if he'd he said, I got you now, cunt, or something like that. That would have been funnier. The other thing that about this film, I guess, is that I know there's stakes in this movie, but doesn't seem to be any real suspense in this movie. I didn't feel like there was much suspense in this film. There were, that really came through. I just feel like the suspense wasn't really there. The music was good, but I don't feel like there was a lot of suspense. It didn't feel scary. It was still a slasher film, yeah, but it didn't have, I don't know, a lot of the stuff you would expect.
Yeah, it was a bit tough, especially when Kylie's character is being killed off within the first 10 minutes. And then, when she's being threatened by Scarman and saying, if you do anything or you get too close or whatever, I'm going to scream. And he's going, how will you scream if you don't have a tongue? So snip, snip with the weapon. So, which is a bizarre weapon too. It's like a huge shears or whatever with like a circular, like a loop type thing. Like it was just like a combo of 2 or 3 tools in one. Where it's like, oh, you can't get that down at Bunnings, can you?
No, I don't think so.
No. But imagine that. Imagine if that's what they should have done. It's well, I guess Bunnings didn't really exist back in when that movie came out, so they would have had to do some integration with BBC Hardware, Mitre 10, hardware house, and go where you can actually, there'll be an awesome tool to attack your garden with because it's guaranteed to kill humans and also the weeds in your garden.
The tool was quite interesting because it was a combination of like a long pair of shears and like I can't remember what the tool's called, but there's like a tool for cutting thick branches and stuff like that.
But that circular part, the half a circle in it, and
yeah,
the only way they could show that that's part of it is when Scarman reaches out to stab someone or slash, and just to say, oh, it's like an arm cut or an abdomen cut. It's like, so that's the only part it's good for that just slightly out of reach attack. But hey, I'm going to cut you.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Trying to think of more stuff to talk about with this film.
Well, I was going to say that tongue that was shown.
Oh, Kylie's tongue?
Kylie's tongue had a long future ahead in a Tui's Extra Dry commercial.
I remember that ad.
That push me.
Yeah, that's right. That was a great ad. They should bring that one back. That was good.
Jessica Napier, who plays the daughter, she was fantastic. So she took this role very seriously. It was just all the murders and the cast being killed off one by one. The fact that when they revealed that it's like a piss weak excuse. Oh, Scarman only exists because he's the combination of all the evil spirits behind the making of Hot Blooded. And you go, all right, this is no Amityville horror type thing where it's being possessed. So if it's just Hot Blooded, imagine listening to Hot Blooded by Foreigner. So it's, God, I hate to know the making of that song if there was any horrible negativity in the studio.
In the studio, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I actually think they got the title all wrong. This title shouldn't have been cut. There's twice or 3 times he uses the term "now you die," and I'm like, that would have been a much better title for the movie. I suppose "cut" works, but maybe "now you die" would have been better than "Hot Blooded."
Yeah,
because "Hot Blooded's" a pretty shit title for a horror movie.
Exactly, but then again, it is a parody.
It is a parody.
Yeah, and I just love the cheesy 90s font of the Hot Blooded stuff that you see on dirt cheap DVD covers.
Yeah.
So, and also,
yeah, that font was terrible.
Yeah, but Molly Ringwald, the American star, which just dialed in obviously she needed the money, had a holiday, as you mentioned. Made an appearance on Good News Week to help promote.
I saw that when I was having coffee this morning. I watched that. Thank you for sending that through.
That's okay. But she just knew that, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm friends with Michael Gudinski, and let's just do a thing. And you could just tell that she knew that it was going to be bad. But there's scenes such as when she's driving the car in the cemetery and the whole one part trying to get the car to roll forward, and then she keeps bunny hopping and goes, oh, the steering wheel's on the wrong side, whatever. But the fact that her character was brought back to continue to finish the film, she has aged gracefully, because when you got someone who there's like that 10-year gap between, or 10, 12, was it 10 or 12 years later after the original?
10 years, I think.
10 years, yeah. So she looks exactly the same as she did 10 years beforehand.
Although I think they tried to make her look a lot younger, and my wife picked up that the scenes with her at the start of the movie when she's playing the young girl, they're kind of very fuzzy and kind of like, oh, it's a good way of kind of hiding that she's not as young as she's supposed to be in the movie, you know. So
yeah,
we've seen this a lot. We As an aside, we've been working our way through SVU, that American show, the New York one. It's really interesting because obviously you can't have children playing a lot of these older parts, and there's people in the movie that are supposed to be 17 or 18 years old that are obviously about 25 or 26. It's a bit like all those horror movies, right, where they're supposed to be teenagers, but they're all in their mid-20s.
I'll give them credit for one of the murders of one of the cast members when they're in the shed and there's the threat of the axe, the wood splitter.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So eventually just see the gory death off screen, but you just see a big splatter of blood against the window.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good. So
yeah, I like that because I'm thinking, okay, that effect's probably too hard for them to do, and also might not have got past the censors, right? So I think that's one of those classic scenes where your brain fills in all the gaps much better than the film could.
Yeah,
just seeing the splatter of blood. Yeah.
But what about in the kitchen though, where she's the girl's going, "Oh no, please don't," and, running around the kitchen bench type thing, trying to attack each other with the the cast iron pan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Scarman cuts her on the arm, like a deep cut, but still manages to throw her arm around without it falling off, and then gets cornered trying to open up the door but can't escape. But so out of being freaked out, screaming her head off, and from the other side of the kitchen, he throws his giant stabby tool and gets her right in the just
it was a hatchet. It was a hatchet, right? And
and just impales. Oh, sorry, the hatchet. Yeah, but it's like you had that time to dodge. You just decide to stand there and scream, and there's a high chance that he's not going to hit his mark, or you might get hit by the handle. But it's like if you do that natural flinch, it's like, oh shit, and then swing your body to the side or whatever.
But that's a horror movie trope. So
yeah. See, I'm now pointing out all the major flaws. It's always good in hindsight.
It is. I just don't know how she managed to get impaled on the door with her feet leaving the ground with a hatchet. There's no way that hatchet could have got through her whole body and then hit the door strongly enough that she could stay impaled to the door.
Mate, I'm sure that hatchet was from Demtil.
Yeah, probably.
But wait, there's more steak knives and a hatchet.
But it is a good look. I mean, I always had the same sort of thought, as much as I love the scene you've seen Halloween, right? The original Halloween.
Yeah.
When Michael Myers impales, I think the actor's name or the character's name is Bob on the wall in the kitchen with a knife. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't know if that knife would really hold his body up, but anyway, whatever. It looks cool.
Go all Mythbusters on it and get a butcher's appraisal on it. It's like, yeah, I don't think that's quite right. Yeah, and then also the director of the original Hot Blooded, when he gets impaled, through the neck, but he's still alive a bit later on as Jessica Napier's burning all the film. On the two police officers. So protect, and you're shooting the first police officer, waste all the rounds in the body. It's like, go for the head, go for the legs, do the Ned Kelly and leg him out. So, but no, it's just like, ha, I'm about to die. And then
he just stood there and laughed at him.
Yeah. It's like, back. Oh, yeah.
But on the guy, I don't think he was the director. He was like he was their lecturer or something at uni at the film school.
Yeah.
And I think previously he was Vanessa, Molly Ringwald's character's assistant on the first film.
Yeah.
But he gets the spear through the neck and then he actually pulls it out.
Oh, yeah.
So,
wow.
So I asked my wife, who's a nurse, is this possible? Right? Now, she may not know, but she was like, well, if it didn't hit any major arteries or it didn't hit anything major in there, it's quite possible you could pull it out and not bleed to death, right?
Yeah, I can see that because that's the straight away I thought of that. I actually put my hand to my neck going, he's just pulled it out, and your arteries.
There's a few arteries in there.
Yeah, and there have been stories where people have been attacked or whatever, or had their injuries impaled on their neck, and then managed to survive.
Yeah.
Because it's missed every major artery. So that's impressive. The fact that he's pulled it out, thrown it against Scarman, then he still has the energy and maintenance to keep throwing the films into the fire, because the only way Scarman can be destroyed is destroy the film. And man, that stuff takes so long to burn.
It takes so long to burn. I'm thinking she's throwing it in the car that the guy was in as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, it's just
it's funny.
Yeah, it just I guess is where all the rest of the money, they go, oh, we better just use up all the budget, and went into the face melt of Scarman. So looking like gone from a Freddy Krueger down to a
street trash
type look of a melting candle.
Or the guy in RoboCop that gets
yeah, exactly. So that's where I think they're going, all right, we've got to juice up the horror a little bit.
Yeah. I thought it was all right though. I think there was a bit of optical trickery in there and a bit of other stuff, but I thought it was all right. I thought it kind of worked a bit.
Yeah.
It would have been better if when he was on top of the director, her character, if he dripped more on her, it would have been more gross. But
and gets like permanently scarred or whatever.
It would have been a bit more. It would have been a bit better that way. But it was fine. It was totally fine. So
exactly.
And then talking about the end of the film, we've got this little epilogue at the end where you get these stories that come up on the screen about how Vanessa's recovered from this, and this guy's recovered from this, and they go and visit Vanessa. She's only in hospital, and you think it's a happy ending, and then they have this tagged on ending where it has to be in America because it's like all these buildings and there's snow everywhere. So it's obvious it's they make it so obvious that you're not in Australia anymore. And they've got another print of this film from God knows where. And that's how the film ends. They're showing the film, and just as the film starts, the woman that's presenting it sits down, and Scarman appears behind her, and we get like a freeze frame ending.
Yeah, it's but they emphasize, it is definitely the only copy left.
Yeah, but then there's another one.
Yeah, it's like
piracy. Must have been piracy.
Yeah, have you ever bought or rented a film that wasn't quite?
Didn't seem quite right. This film didn't seem quite right.
Yeah.
So
that's what they should have done with those the warnings. That's like, we'll release Scarman on you. That's what they should have done. Scarman would have been more intimidating if they had Steve Britton do the voice. It's like,
yeah, you wouldn't steal a can of film.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing, I thought the music was okay in this. There's obviously a lot of rock, like heavy rock music, and I'm assuming that all the music on this were all mushroom artists at the time.
Straight out of Liberation music. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously at the start, we've got a Crowded House song right at the beginning of the movie. And I think they were mushroom artists, am I right?
Oh, Split Ends.
Split Ends, not Crowded House, Split Ends, sorry.
And then there's a Groove Terminator song. Here comes another one.
Yeah, so they're all obviously, mushroom artists. So,
but I do like the way that they wrapped up in the closing credits, where suddenly the mood changes to Apollo 440, Can't Stop the Rock, and going, oh, there's a throwback. So, I'm going, yeah, that doesn't really suit the style. But
yeah. Any final thoughts on the film?
Pure cheese. And first time watching it, I actually gave it 1.5 stars on my Letterboxd, but I will revisit if I want a good laugh. So it is it's a nice entry into those cheesy Ozploitation-esque type. Like, it sit proud right next to them. So kind of like what's the movie? The one that made me laugh was Turkey Shoot. So I'd say it'll be right next to that whole the budget of the animatronics and the violence, the gore, the graphics of an 80s film in a 90s story, but trying to I was trying to wrap it up to the noughties type thing, but yeah, I'll watch it again just for a good old laugh or something not to take seriously. Maybe if I have a few drinks with it too.
That might help. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's a bit of an underrated slasher, I think. It had an interesting story. Oh, hang on. He's going to say something else.
Sorry,
Come on.
I do apologise for that clap, but
That's all
I
right.
just realised it's on par with Houseboat Horror.
Oh, there you go. There's the link.
Yeah, there's
I
the
think
link.
Houseboat Horror is a little bit worse than this.
Yeah, but I'd say that it's like a 90s houseboat horror when it comes to the gore.
Now, if they just could have got Gavin Wood in there,
Oh, he had the connection. So
he could have been the projectionist.
yeah. Oh, you'll watch this movie, you'll bar up.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, everyone. If every time I come onto this podcast and I always drop a Gavin Wood reference.
So as I was saying, it's a bit of an underrated slasher for me. It's got an interesting story, characters, I'm watching for the duration of the film. Kills are done well. Molly Ringwald rises a little above phoning it in. It could be a bit more suspenseful and have a few more scares, but overall, it's a pretty competent slasher that most fans of the genre will enjoy. So I gave it 3 director's tongues out of 5.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I had seen this obviously before and logged it on Letterboxd before, and I had it at 2.5, and when I watched it again, I was like, no, this is a 3 for me. So
I'd say once I get more comfortable with the film,
yeah,
I'll probably bump it up to maybe a 2-star or a 2.5. But for right now, 1.5 until I loosen up a bit about it.
I also think a lot of these films, like it's always, if you're a bit of a fan of the genre, you kind of enjoy them a little bit more, and if you're a horror fan like I am in general, you're a little bit more, what's the word? Not accepting. Oh, I suppose a little bit more accepting of sort of stuff that's not done so well.
Yeah.
And pretty much, you if you watch a lot of horror, you watch a lot of shit. And to get to the good stuff, you got to watch a lot of shit. And some of the stuff that looks like it's a lot of shit is actually quite good. So, it's worth a watch.
You know what I just realised? That the most disappointing thing, and when we're talking about the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
While Kylie Minogue was in it for 10 minutes and was the main selling point of the movie, there's not one Kylie Minogue song in.
No, which is interesting because, she's a mushroom artist, or she was at the time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, exactly.
I guess it's like one or the other. Have me for 10 minutes or have a song and
license a song. Was she even in it for 10 minutes, really? I think she was.
Yeah, I'm clutching at straws there.
I think she's in maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Yeah, she's not much, but anyway, she has a go.
Yeah, good on her.
Good on her.
She did it for Gudinski.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so that's cut. Matt, firstly, what are you up to? And with both your podcast and your website?
Well, first of all, that podcast, Champagne Comedy podcast, talk about anything working dog related, reviewing their projects and stuff. When you're listening to this, we're recording it on the final day of 2024, but we will the Champagne Comedy podcast is returning for 2025, and we start reviewing season 3 of Frontline. So that starts in February 2025. And if you're listening to this way after that time, then we have reviewed Frontline season 3 and probably more stuff. And also My Geek Culture, it's just mygeekculture.com.au. I've got to make sure I plug that properly. It's just random content of trying to be of Australian content, really. Recently, I documented a trip to the US.
Did you ever?
So it was quite fun bumping into an Aussie as well who loves his Aussie films there. So I ran into him in Las Vegas. And, he was from Melbourne. I can't remember his name. So, So, and a few other podcasters as well, which I plugged Dingo Ate My Movie as well. So apparently I'm good friends with Steve Irwin and Paul Hogan. So,
oh, really? That's what all Americans think about Australians.
So, I'm doing that. But this year, the new year with My Geek Culture, I'm planning to recap some, not podcast form, but in written form, some stuff with some Australian comedy TV shows, which are really popular. I won't mention the names, but if you go to the website, bookmark it, you'll start seeing articles popping up eventually.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time, Matt. It's great to have you back on again. Now, I know we're working on a bit of a project for the future, and hopefully we'll get that happening fairly soon. It was going to be today's episode until I forgot that we had discussed doing it as like a joint venture kind of thing. That
we are working on that.
We'll both release it separately, but
I forgot about it too. I was like, we'll do this, and then it's like,
then
I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
So
it shows you that we're keen on doing it.
We'll get it done. We need to get it done. So we need to do it because I wanted to put it out this year, so we'll have to do it this year. So
here's a hint: Pete will eventually feature on my podcast for a particular thing. So there's a hint. So.
Yes, yeah. Tell him you dream it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thanks so much for coming on, and look forward to having you again in the future. I'll try and find a better movie besides the one we're going to do together. I'll think of try and find a better movie.
It wasn't a bad movie. It was so bad it was good. So
well, it's good.
But then now, the more that I talk about it, the more I'm really starting to appreciate it a bit more. And I'll lie if I say I'll try to watch it tonight. But no, I'll watch. Or maybe if I start watching it at about 11:30 tonight, New Year's Eve, and then continue watching it into the new year, then I've watched the movie over 2 years.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Well, you could do one of those weird things where you try and time it that Kylie Minogue's character gets murdered on the stroke of midnight or something.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on. And
thank you very much, Peter.
And when we return, we'll talk about what's coming up next.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
In our next episode, I'm joined again by Tab, and we'll be talking about 1994's comedy drama, Muriel's Wedding.
You're terrible, Muriel.
Really looking forward to that one. Thanks for listening to this episode of A Dingo Ate My Movie. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It really helps more people find us. You can also find more episodes and info over at dingomoviepod.com. We're also on socials, Blue Sky, Facebook and Instagram under Dingo Movie Pod. Are you interested to hear the music from the films we talk about? Check out our playlists on Spotify and Apple Music. Just search A Dingo Ate My Movie. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com, Dingo Movie Pod. Thanks again, and I'll see you next episode.